Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of An Extra Slice of History with the Butterfly Princess. This week we are discussing prostitution in ancient Athens. Now, in the time of the ancient times in Athens, prostitution was a legal form of work. It was regulated by the state during the Greek Archaic period. Brothels were instituted and taxed by the lawgiver, and this policy continued into the classical period. For many women who lived during the time of ancient Athens, this was the only way for women to make a living. During the time of ancient Athens, Athens was a very prosperous centre for trade, and due to this fact, it drew in a large population of young single men who served as crew aboard merchant ships, while at the same time young Athenian males usually didn't marry until they reached the age of 30. So, of course, you've got to imagine these travelling sailors, obviously like today, had a lot of sexual urgencies and to get that sexual and to release them sexual urges. They had to get released. So this going to a prostitute in the time of ancient Athens was a time for these young unmarried men to have a sexual experience before they settled down with a wife and had children. This was when a person called Saloon, legalised prostitution and opened brothels. At this time, there was no stigma attached to clients or prostitutes, nor overall the clients of prostitutes' life. So it was very different to what it is today. There were two types of prostitutes in Athens. One was found in brothels or on street corners, and another type of prostitutes was what was that of a higher class, and she acted more like a female companion. And sex was only one aspect of the service that this high female companion provided to her clients. Now, these sort of higher class female companions were quite more expensive, obviously, because a lot of men went to visit prostitutes in brothels because it was cheaper for them. It was also seen as pursuing a legal profession and providing a necessary service, while male prostitutes were generally looked down on for playing the woman's part. So that the reason why male prostitutes were looked down on is because they sort of took on the female role during sexual activity. Because they had a lot of male clients, the male prostitutes, obviously, served a lot of male clients as well, so it was same sex really. That's why they were looked down upon. Many sex workers who worked in brothels were slaves. Some had been freed, and others had not yet been freed. They were either forced into the work by their masters or found they had no way to make a living other than through the sale of sex. However, on the more female escorts, these were more upper class educated women who wanted control of their own lives and their own finances and generally lived as they pleased. So I suppose that could be in a way a bit like, say, some, as we discussed in my sex work series with Amy Taylor, we discussed how some sex workers either work under, a pimp or a madam, or they will work for a more upper class sort of, more of an escort thing where they sort of provide companion services other than just sex and stuff. So women in ancient Greece, in ancient Athens, at the time of the ancient world, were essentially legal minors and supervised by male guardians. First the father and then the husband. So the father would act as the female's companion to his daughter, and then once she married, the husband would act as the guardian to his wife. Um, um, if she outlived both her father and her husband, if that marriage had produced a son, or maybe if not, an uncle would take over the role of the male guardian to the woman. The women in ancient Greece had no political voice, and they could not engage in financial transactions except with other women, and at certain times in places in the Agora, for example, there was a section where women could buy and sell produce from their gardens, wool they had spun, artifacts and jewellery or whatever they wanted, but they could not sell these to a man nor outside of their specified area. In the home, the women's quarters were separate from the rest of the house and could be locked from the outside. The man of the house held the key because women in everyday life were thought to be exceptionally lustful, weak in their constitution and easily led astray. A woman was expected to marry, have and rear children and manage the home. Only area of public life women could actively participate in was the religious aspect of life. Women were central to both the lesser and the Greek festivals and could freely participate in the rituals of the cult of Athena, even serving as priestesses. The Parthenon and carried in the procession through the arena, agora, and up to the way to the Acropolis. Women also were encouraged to gather for the festival for certain festivals each autumn and celebrate goddesses. So that now concludes this week's episode of An Extra Slice of History with the Butterfly Princess, where we've learnt a bit about prostitution in ancient Athens. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you can join me next week for for the next instalment where we will talk about Anchor One. So I hope you can join me for that episode. Until then, have a lovely rest of your week and I will see you again very soon. Bye for now.